Today we're looking at some of the best games I found in the 2019 Game Maker's Toolkit Game Jam. We're looking at a few platformers with interesting mechanics, a stealth game, a game where you shoot galactic supercriminals, and a game where you kill a dragon with a boomerang. Let's get to it. Singled Out is a minigame where you're given 3 attributes that only the galactic supercriminal has, and you must find and shoot them within the time limit. You want to avoid killing innocent bystanders that might look similar. The scoring method is what makes this game fun. There's a time limit bar at the top that counts down, and the longer it takes for you to shoot the criminal, the less points you get. This is so much more dynamic than a simple rounds 1 counter. I feel that generally speaking, the more variables with scoring, the better. It allows for less ties and more styles of play, so this scoring system provides plenty of variance. It rewards players who are both fast and accurate, but it doesn't leave people who are slower totally out of getting good scores. If it takes you a little longer to find the criminal, but you're right more often, you can still rack up a lot of points. Something that was much appreciated was the excellent target animation that plays when you shoot an innocent bystander. Something about this just gives it such a classic arcade feel, and it wraps up the playing experience nicely. My only point of feedback was that the pixel graphics just lacked a little too much detail for my taste. Dragon's Boomerang is a boss battle where you're a princess who has to kill a dragon within 1 minute and with only 1 boomerang. You figure out pretty quick that the dragon has a weak spot on the belly, so you start aiming for that most of the time. What I liked about the game was the 1 minute timer with infinite lives mechanic. The thing is, when you die, you leave a statue in your place and spawn at a random spot in the level. These statues deter the player from abusing the infinite lives, since the more statues there are in the level, the harder it is to run around. But this death mechanic is great because it also allows for players to try to use it to their advantage in the right circumstances. For example, players can purposely die if they think it'll be worth the risk to possibly spawn closer to the boomerang, or if they want to try to block the dragon with the statues. Some points of feedback for the designers are that hitting the dragon somewhere other than the belly needs to do more damage. There's basically no incentive to hit him anywhere else since it does so little damage. There were a lot of times where I would press the button to throw the boomerang, then turn around and start running away, but there was such a long delay on throwing the boomerang that I threw it after I turned around. That delay needs to be reduced. I think introducing a dash mechanic would add a layer of depth to the mechanics and make it feel a little bit more contemporary. And lastly, since his belly was the only place to reasonably aim for, I wish he didn't get so close to the outer walls without turning around. Next is Dethrone, which is a pretty straightforward platformer, pretty similar to something like Super Meat Boy. I actually made a video recently that's just about Dethrone, so you should definitely check that video out. But basically, this is a really polished platformer that did a good job of introducing controls and mechanics, as well as having intuitive level design. The 2 main points of feedback I had for it were the stickiness of the character on platforms and when they jump off of it, and the fact that moving obstacles did not die upon death. The video is like 5 minutes long, so you should just go check that out. Really what you should just do is go download the game and play it. It's a lot of fun. Spaces Limited is a platform where you're collecting dots around the level to open a portal that you must get to complete the level. The shtick is that you can only inhabit a place once, and when you have already been to a space, you leave behind a version of yourself that you can then jump on, or it can block you. This ends up being quite unique and fun to have to deal with, as it makes the game a great mix between puzzle and platformer. You have to strategize your movements and be dexterous in certain situations. You can't jump too far or too high sometimes because you'll block your only exit route. It's interesting having to play this game so differently than other platformers. Sometimes the jumping patterns are unlike any other platformer I've played. I like being able to climb up to high platforms just by jumping up straight a few times. This mechanic, along with the pretty open level design, makes this a fun but challenging experience. That's actually one of my only critiques. I got stuck on level 10 and really could not figure out how to move on, so I just had to quit. It Devours Our Souls is a stealth game that shows that atmosphere and sound design can be the difference between a great and a mediocre game experience. The pixely world is weird and engrossing, and there's an unsettling, low bass frequency floating in your headphones the whole time. This makes the game way more tense than silence or a song ever could. The sound of killing one of these lobster monsters is so damn satisfying when you're surrounded by nothing but trembling bass. This game is only 6 minutes long, so after the video, please do yourself a favor and download the game from the link in the description, get your headphones on, and see what kind of vibe I'm talking about. Out of Keys is a platformer where you can only use each available movement 1 time. While this concept is limiting, the execution is well done and a great starting point for a full game. Some of the maneuver timings were difficult to pull off, which is what made it challenging. The highlight of the design for me was the keyboard layout that shows the available movements you have. It streamlines the experience for the player and lets them focus on execution more than interpretation. I could imagine a different designer showing the available moves in a different way, like a list of words or symbols, but this would have been clunkier. An obvious limitation that would need to be addressed if this was expanded to a full game is the lack of variety that the current system provides. How many combinations are available when you can only use each key once? One possible solution would be to allow multiple but limited uses of keys in each round. Each level would allow, say, 3 uses of a certain move, 2 uses of a different move, and all the rest have 1 use. This still keeps the spirit of the puzzle intact while opening up the possible levels that can be created. Another possible solution would be to get rid of the movement limits entirely, but give the players a score based on how few movements they used. Each movement has unlimited uses, but you get a higher score for using less movements. This would feel like a different type of puzzle, but I think it could create a good amount of replayability. And the last game today is Soulward, which is a platformer game where the main mechanic is the character's magical shard. You can throw this shard around the level and teleport to it, but you can also kill enemies with it. When you're hit while holding the shard, you don't die, but the shard flies out of your hands and you have to go retrieve it. But if you do get hit while not holding the shard, you die. This shard having multiple mechanics actually made me think of what Anna Anthropy explains towards the beginning of their book, A Game Design Vocabulary, that good game design requires that verbs or actions have multiple uses or can be combined with other actions to create new actions for the player. This avoids what they call orphaned verbs, which are actions that do only one thing. Thus, they aren't very interesting and have limited purpose. This shard being both the main movement mechanic and the way to kill enemies creates interesting choices for the player. Also, the fact that there is an inherent risk whenever you use the shard helps keep the player on their toes with risk-reward decisions constantly. I really enjoyed the 2 life mechanic where you can get hit when you have the shard and you still have a chance to go grab the shard back or finish a level without it. The player can get put into a situation where they have to pull off a clutch set of maneuvers to survive. An additional design choice that helped make the game more fun was the low gravity or floatiness of the character. This allowed some wiggle room for inaccurate throws. I could teleport to the shard and adjust my position in the brief second afterwards to land on the platform. I have 2 points of feedback for the game, the first being that I think some sort of trajectory line should be added. I had a really tough time knowing what angle I was aiming at. Even just a short line shooting out from the character would help. I don't think a line across the whole level is necessary. Also, I felt that there should be an option to call back your shard after a bad throw. Maybe having that option only 2 to 3 times a level would be a good middle ground, since having too many chances to do that would totally ruin the balance of the game. Alright, that was my list of the best games I found at the Game Maker's Toolkit Game Jam 2019. During the making of this video, the results for the Game Jam actually came out, and the game that scored the highest out of all the ones I've listed was Out of Keys, who got 64th place. So that means there was a bunch of really great games that I didn't get a chance to play, so I'm probably going to go back through and put out another video with all of my reviews of some of those games. But anyway, make sure you check out all the links to these games in the description below, and let me know in the comments section what you thought of them. And lastly, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It means a lot for a small channel like this. But regardless, thanks for watching.